Okay. Congrats, guys. Really good winners. It's a 2-1 for the app.
So I sat. I think that the extension of so Chris, you make it very easy for me to evaluate the arguments if you say there are X number of ways I take out skepticism. So the first one I think is the equal liberties B argument. The way this is phrased is that either we care about equal liberties or we have to accept an egoistic conclusion. But Nathan's extension of the Joyce arguments seems to me to say that egoistic conclusion is true, right? We can't access other people's reasons, or at least that's the extension of it in both speeches. So at that point, I think that argument just accepts the antecedent condition. All right, egoism is true. It doesn't excuse arguments. The next argument is this reflective equilibrium argument. I think that there are two reasons. I think that the first reason it's irrelevant seems to be the extension of pigeon on the NC. Pigeon, to me, says that, I didn't call for it because it wasn't contested, but to me it says that in order for anything to be morally true or for us to make any moral statement in the real world, it must be tautologically true. And he says that's bad for obvious reasons. And reflective equilibrium, my understanding is we say specific examples of things are moral bads, and then derive like intuitionism or rule util or rule consequentialism based on that. So if we can't make those statements about why specific things are morally bad without them being a tautology, then it seems to me that reflective equilibrium is non-functional. Additionally, I think that the argument that forfeit is no reason why this actually matters. It relies on us caring about reasons and us having access to other people's reasons is somewhat persuasive in taking this argument out. So I don't want to vote there. Then the other argument you're extending on the 2N or the 2A is that this argument on the NC about asking is this like Coles-esque example argument about asking a question implies there's like more plausible truth claims, and that you say that it's only like terminal defense and I give countervailing reasons. So I don't really understand how I could possibly vote for you, like, even if this argument is true, right? Like, if you give some countervailing reason, I don't know why that means that reason is a reason to pull the trigger, right? It doesn't link to some sort of framework if I don't think reflective equilibrium is true. And I've already thought that SCEP is true, so I vote on SCEP.
I can go next. So I agree with Grant's assessment of the first point. And not only that, but I'll just add that the argument Grant summarized, for me on my vote, is cross-applied to the liberties point, the egoism point. So I don't think I'm giving him a new cross-application that you urged me not to do. However, what gets rid of the skepticism debate for me is the reflective equilibrium argument. I guess what I'd say, I'll just say it in relation to Grant's decision, since I think it gives a good example of it. So for me, I think Chris is making the very, to my mind, plausible claim that it is true that the claims you're making and the claims he's making are incompatible, so that you can say the general principle is right, that we can't have any moral reasons, or that we don't care about moral reasons, then obviously the conclusions he comes to are false. But the argument he goes for is, this is a claim about what we should think. That raises the question, what is our methodological framework for assessing those claims? And so, for example, Grant was saying, if it's true generally that we couldn't have any reasons, then obviously Chris's arguments wouldn't get off the ground at all. And I think that's right, but Chris's argument is, look at the scandal evidence, it says that isn't necessarily the right methodology for assessing. It's not necessarily true that we should start with the most general principle and then proceed from there by steps of logical necessity to conclude about what we should think of any particular case. And so I think Chris is doing a good job of selling this claim that your arguments are claims within a methodological framework, they're moral conclusions or meta-moral conclusions. We need a way to assess them, and for that reason, the reflective equilibrium way is the only way presented in the debate. And then under reflective equilibrium, I think it's pretty clear that Chris is winning that. I should look at role consequentialism.
So I guess my only question is, how did you evaluate that those reflective capacities are not accessible to other people?
So that argument for me takes care of the egoism, other people's liberty argument, but it doesn't take care of the reflective equilibrium methodology point at all, I think. And if you think it does, then I think I would need more explanation from you on why, because it doesn't seem to me that it does. It seems to me that the way it relates to that is the same way, for example, the Joyce argument relates to it, the main body of the Joyce argument, which is that this is making a claim about a conclusion I should hold about the status of morality, and that just raises the question, what is my method for assessing competing claims on that issue?
Yeah, my decision's really almost the same as Tom's. I do have the explicit cross application under Joyce to the liberties thing, but I have dropped in the 2N Chris's point that you don't provide any counter theory, any counter methodology for deciding what to think, and Joyce is only operating under an alternative. So given that he's the only one winning a methodology for deciding whether to think that skepticism is true or not, that takes out Joyce. That's the reason for reflective equilibrium. The only thing I have to add is that you also drop the can weigh plausibility claims on the actual body of the NC. So the only skeptical argument I could vote on would be Joyce.
Okay. All right.
That's not really
do you think then in the 2N, I don't think he responded to Rodel as a turn on the AC. Do you think I should have extended Rodel? It would have made it a lot clearer.
Yeah, yes. I don't know how that would interact with the no counter methodology either, though.
No, not as, but as offense under util.
That was awesome. The turn. Rudel was the turn? I thought it was the argument before that. Or maybe that was just part of it. Okay. Yeah. You have a drop turn. I guess.
Good round, Chris. All right.